Are you a project manager building a product that needs to move to operations? Or maybe you're an operational manager accepting a product from a project team. If so, your teams and you are going to want to know the 5 things you need to do to make sure you're ready for acceptance and moving of a product from project to operations. Now, let's get right into it. I'll take you through them one by one. First of all is design done. During your define stage of your project, you're going to want to work with the operationals team to define what done looks like. Technology, process, people, organizational, policy change. What are all the components of what the product will include? So that's kind of a scope definition, but for operations as well. And then you're going to need to decide what kind of cutover are you talking about? When you move to operations, are you doing a hard cutover? That is when the organization doing the project is completely defining the product, completing the product, and handing over a completed, organized product to the end organization that will operate the product going forward. The other option is that you actually do a parallel. So you might create a minimum viable product if, for instance, you're building something in technology like an app, and you might move that to operations first and then continue to build and move to operations as those next phases are completed of the product. Now, there are pros and cons to both of these. The biggest one is if you're doing a hard cutover and you might be going live, those users are live. They're going to need the right kind of support from your project team. So you might move people from operations into your project team in order to support them, or you're going to need to build those skills organically within your team. The other option is this parallel or phased approach, in which case the name of the game is going to be communication between the two organizations, the project team and the operational team. It's going to be really important for everyone to be clear about version control. So as the project team builds more product and operations team might be doing upgrades, are those things aligned or are they creating conflicts with each other? You're going to need to know that and have a really good way of documenting all change control that impacts production services, how operations work, what kind of special documentation they need, and also understand the stage gates and process of moving from the project to the operational system. Oftentimes, there's different lines of stakeholders in both organizations. You're going to want to make sure that you're talking to both of those lines, and so you know what stage gates, meetings, steer codes, or maybe even documentation to approve from project to operations is necessary. If you don't know that, you might find yourself ready to move the product, everything is great, you're aligned with operations, but the stakeholders have not done their final agreement. And because this might be different parts of organizations or even another organization, you need to have all contracts and anything else in place before you start to do that transition. A good way to do this is often in a workshop with all the key players so that you're building a roadmap not just for the project, but for how operations will hand over. I mean, it's clear that project documentation is owned by the project, but what about operations documentation that is created initially, potentially in the project? How will operations have a say to update it? What will the format be? And what will the final change control and ownership of those documents be? You need to be clear about that so that there's no miscommunication and document version control is kept. Next, you need to build the skills. Build a transitional skill set team. Now that can be done in a couple of ways. One is while the project's going, if there's some technical or specialty skills necessary for the operations team that they currently don't have, they can go to training. They can go to product training if it's an ERP or technology that is new to them. But also, it can be that you can do some cross-training. For instance, if you're doing a hard cutover, but you're going to stand up some users in a live production system, you might bring operations people over to do that support in the project team as part of a midterm approach to getting their skills ready, but also supporting the people who are currently live. You might also just bring over some operations people so they can be part of the project and take part in the training of the project. You can create train the trainer documentation to help them understand all of the ways of working, the documentation you've created, maybe scripts you've built together. Or finally, you might bring project people into the operations organization for a time so that they can help train on the job, coach people, troubleshoot, deal with all the issues that happen once you're already live, right? But one of the things you're going to want to do during meetings or workshops is write down all of the skills you're going to need in operations and note those that may have a skills gap in operations so that you can plan in advance for who's going to train them, how they're going to be trained, what the timing is, and how you're going to make sure your skills are at the right level before you begin operations. One other point to that is making sure you have enough of the right people. Next, you need to design the handover. This isn't the actual moment of handover, this is designing what the handover looks like. So you'll need to decide what the timing is, how documents are handled back and forth, version control, how people will move back and forth between the two projects if you decide to do that with training, and more importantly, how these milestones, gate approvals, and other kinds of authorizations happen so that the product can move. There may even be outside organizational impact, such as projects happening elsewhere that impact the operational go live that need to be taken into consideration. Your project may only be one piece of the puzzle, and operations has to put that entire puzzle together. So there may be some traffic copying, as I call it, where they need one project to move forward, one project to stand still while they're putting all those pieces together. You need to know if you fit into that puzzle, and if so, where. And the next step is creating the cutover plan. Again, you're not cutting over yet, you're just making the plan. So all of the obvious things need to be sorted out, such as the operations team is fit for purpose for what needs to be done when the product is live, and project team is handing over the product intact, in completion, in a way that operations can accept. So you're going to want to look at any communications that you need to do, and this is really important. You're going to want to plan this early. You're not just communicating to your stakeholders and to the project and operations team, you're communicating to your users and possibly a wider public. There you're going to want to talk about early and often the benefits to the users, the time frame and impact, the possible changes they might have experienced, because maybe some technology is changing, but maybe also policies and procedures are changing as well. And then in addition to that, you're going to want to make them excited about the change. You're going to want to have a moment when they understand that there may be a cutover weekend when they don't have access to the system, and you're going to want to tell them that very soon so they can plan. But more importantly, you're going to want to make them feel excited about it. So think about doing things that create a buzz for the communication. Creating buzz at the start is a good thing. People, when they have change, need to see it as positive. If you do it too much on the down low, people might be caught out. They may not realize how the change impacted them. So make sure your communication ducks are in a row on both sides, project and operations. Next, data mapping, of course, end-to-end testing, which happens inside the project, you would think, but that testing has to happen also in the operations team. The service is checked. All of your scripts are tested, and the operations team know what to do if it's tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You need to make a day 1 punch list or something to tell you all the steps and the order of the steps for the cutover, which is the last point, actually doing the cutover. This is going to have to run like a smooth military operation. Everyone knows their job for the day, how it's going to happen, how to stand down operational systems or tools or processes or websites that are going to be replaced by your new product. And all of that is a huge organizational moment. So you're going to need to have parts of both of your teams, project and operations, focused on that. So that's it, 5 things every project team and manager needs to know about, and the operations team needs to know too. I hope you found this information helpful. If you want to know more about how customer service works within a project or operations, check out this video. And if you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and joining me next time on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Bye-bye, everybody.